Also, Massimo can join with his attendees, normal attendees link, and then Natasha will upgrade him as a panelist, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are live.
So I say that he can enter with attendees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We already promoted him.
Okay, so good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Massimo,
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. Goodbye. Hi. Hi, Effie. Hi.
So we do take out our videos now?
Agostino was supposed to welcome and take the floor to start. And I see he is not connected any longer.
And I think that, so then I'll give you the floor immediately, right, Maria?
No, you then will give the floor to Massimo as a moderator of the session, okay? I'll disappear now. So, Tino, whenever you feel, you can start because the session is already on a broadcast mode, okay?
Sure. Okay, so I think that we can start. Welcome to everybody. This is the second one of the final webinars of the Family Share project. Family Share is the European project, a CAPSI European project aimed at sustaining families, in particular parents, in the care of their children by activating a self-support network, small self-support networks that may benefit from an app that will help the small networks to organize all the activities in a timeshare approach. Today, the webinar will be moderated by Massimo Zancanaro from the University of Trento, and I would like to give him the floor immediately so that he may lead this afternoon. Thank you, Massimo.
Thank you, Agostino, and welcome to everybody. I see that there are several people, a lot of people, I mean, not an incredible number, but still a large number for this kind of events. And I will very proud to chair this session with some very interesting talks. I will ask the attendees to use the Q&A, the question and answering facility of Zoom, so that we can, so that I can collect questions and to pass the questions to the speakers. So I will just start to introduce the first speakers of today, which is Patrizia Zanoni from the University of Utrecht in Utrecht. And Patrizia is a professor at the Utrecht University. She's a renewed expert in international critical and management studies. She developed a research in the context of companies and about conflict in organization and diversity management practices. Today, she will talk about what is innovation in organization welfare, and I think this is a very interesting and timely topic for in the context of family shares. Patrizia, I think you can have the floor. We are a little bit early because Agostino did a very short introduction, but I think that it would be nice to hear from you for a few more minutes, or maybe having a little bit more question answering as you prefer.
Yeah, sure. I can go on and on talking and filling all the space. So it's good that we are on time. Thank you all for inviting me to reflect with you on this program, which I find, this project, which I find very interesting and combines a little bit of my interests. I will share my screens with my presentation. Let's see if this works. So can everybody see the slide?
Yes, I think we
Okay, okay. Thank you for the introduction. So today I would like to reflect with you on this project, this very innovative project from three specific point of view, three paradigms, business perspective, an occupational welfare perspective, and a social reproduction perspective. And you will see that they bring into the discussion of the desirability and the advantages and the potential, the transformative potential of this kind of experiences from very different point of views. I think I went to, back to how you describe the project yourself, and I find it very inspiring. It's you see an ambition in the narrative that you developed collectively, very clear ambition to recreate the social fabric of care in innovative ways, starting from individuals and families and communities to take care, in this case, of children, but also involving other kind of subjects like the elderly, for example, and making use and leveraging what the newest technology is offering us today, but also mixing this with ideas of societal organizations, which have quite a tradition, like, for example, the experience of time banking and the idea of sharing one's time with each other and to together carry out tasks in new ways that are not mediated by market or by the states. Why is it relevant today? I think because we really feel, and the numbers show this as well, much tension in post-industrial societies about the conflicting demands on individuals, families, and communities between production and what I call social reproduction with many other colleagues, and which are the result of an evolution of our societies to a lot of waged and paid work in the market, and typically the feminization of the labor market, whereby a large share of the population, which was traditionally less integrated in informal economic activities, becomes massively integrated, and also through the extension of the waged working day, and where you see the traditional social fabric kind of under great strain because of this integration. So the work of care that was traditionally taking place outside production is to some degree has been moved to the market, but to some degree it has been just dropped and we see the consequences, for example, in the fact that some care has been has undergone a psychologization or even a medicalization. I think also we are at a certain point in history where this is becoming even more clear because of all the contradictions that we see under the pandemic, where care and production come very visibly into a tension, a contradiction, and even in opposition. So the three lenses I'm offering to you today are a business lens. This is where I come from because of my embeddedness in the Faculty of Business here in Belgium. Then I will go to more an occupational welfare kind of lens, and I will close with a social reproduction theory lens. And concluding with some criteria which I think are important to continue this type of projects, to reflect on how we should evaluate these experiences. So if you look at the business literature, for example, the dominant paradigm is a paradigm of work-life balance, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and where actually the core is the individual perception that one's life, working life and private life is in balance, and in a way that promotes personal growth according to one's preferences and life priorities. Based on this idea, you see a lot of companies are today offering to their employees a number of arrangements to achieve this individually desired balance. And for example, the most common examples are flexible hours, also part-time work. Of course, right now, extremely popular, where possible, telework, remote work from home or from satellite offices. But this kind of work-life arrangements can also be of other kinds, like even take-home meals, ironing services through your employer, childcare services, like ones that are covered in this project, or more often actually offered through third parties, but subsidized, for example, by the employer. Going even into employee fitness rooms and health services. Why do employers do this? Well, of course, they also realize that having dual earner families, that many of which also have children, puts individuals and couples under great strain and increases their work-life conflict, decreasing their work-life balance. And these arrangements are actually designed to encourage them to reach a better balance between work and life. And the idea behind these arrangements is that employees will be more satisfied and more productive, and also importantly, will be less absent from work, and will actually be the likelihood that they leave the company will decrease. Interestingly, all the empirical research on this shows that this kind of theoretical relations are not, in reality, not so linear. However, it does show that even the fact that the employer offers these arrangements can in itself be sufficient to stimulate productivity and to lower turnover. Because these arrangements have themselves a signaling function that the employer cares, and they also are a part of an employer branding as a work-life friendly employer. In any case, the employer, of course, generally does this in function of maintaining or increasing organizational performance, of course. There are also some caveats for employees. First of all, these arrangements are not equally open to all employees. It depends on what kind of job you are in. For example, in management jobs, it's much more difficult to have a part-time contract if one desires to. Also, we have done some research where it's very clear that, for example, first-line managers prefer to have access to these practices, these arrangements as a in hand, so not as a right of the employees, but rather as a way to negotiate with employees about their working conditions, which gives, of course, managers more leverage. And also, of course, women are much more likely to take to use these arrangements. And in many cultures, what you see is that the use of these arrangements actually goes against the formal policies that try to have women in higher jobs, because they kind of reproduce gender roles whereby women kind of work part-time and therefore have less chances to get a promotion to higher jobs in the company. So what is important about this lens? This lens is a lens that is very much based on the individual. It's the individual that has to choose, and that should be made, it should be put in the condition and in the situation to choose what kind of balance he or she wants to achieve. The emphasis is always on keeping people in the labor market, in the company, at work. So that's the primary point of view, not the care, the paid work. And also, very interestingly, even though this is a typically very gendered kind of topic, if you look into the research, you also see that gender is very often completely neglected and controlled for in quantitative studies, because they're interested in a neutral individual that is able then to make choices and what the effects are, for example, on perceived work-life balance. There is also quite a lot of neglect of the fact that these arrangements are much more frequent and present in sectors where women are more present. And certainly in economies such as the Belgian economies, where sectors are very strong and the trade unions are very strong, you see that the male-dominated sectors have historically always negotiated higher wage and benefits, while the female sectors have much more negotiated flexibility. And this is quite interestingly because it means that the institutional arrangements that has been negotiated over time kind of keeps a segregated labor market. You also have huge differences in countries, and I think it's very important because this project is a European project with 4 countries that are in many ways very different from each other. For example, in terms of part-time work, you see here a very good distribution. So the long dark blue columns are the women, and the light columns are the men in 2015. And you see in Hungary, for example, there is almost no part-time work, and also very little different between men and women. Then you go to Greece, Italy, with much more gendered, much more part-time and very gendered, and Belgium even more so. Also, all the European statistics show that women are much overrepresented in part-time work, and that they go for part-time work often in order to care for families and for children and other members of the family. You also see that the type of arrangements that are offered is very classed, depending on the kind of jobs you're in. You see that in female-dominated jobs, both low-skilled and medium to high-skilled jobs, you see much more part-time work than other kind of arrangements. And of course, there are differences between these arrangements because part-time work means also that you, from your work, you get much less protection. While in gender balance, high-skilled sectors, you find other, like more flexibility, for example, and other kinds of arrangements that substitute the employer in her or his caring roles. Now, this is the business perspective. The occupational welfare perspective is at another level of analysis. It's a political economy kind of paradigm, where you instead of starting from the individual, you start from the company. The company that often, and this has always been the case in the history of capitalism from the industrialization onwards, the company that chooses to provide its employees some benefits, often kind of social benefits. And part of these benefits are mandated by law, but part can also be a strategic and a volunteer choice of the company to bind its employees. Yeah? So I think this is a very important kind of tradition. There are various terms that are used for this kind of services. Occupational welfare, I think, is the most used, but you also have authors that use corporate welfare, contract welfare, enterprise-based welfare, and organizational welfare. The important thing here is that it's, for the discussion today, it's the part that is volunteer, and also that these rights are all based on the contractual relationship between the employer and the employee. Now, it's very hard to find statistics on these volunteer kind of policies. I did find some, but they are quite old. They go until 2013. But at that point in time, and this is already after the global economic crisis of 2008, you see a growth in these voluntary schemes from companies actually across countries. Of course, the growth varies, but you see that this type of policies becomes more and more frequent. However, there are also very large differences between countries, and on the basis of what I have seen, I think the most frequent cases are when in those countries that have relatively low expenditures, public expenditures, where the companies really make a difference because the public sphere doesn't offer services, for example, such as childcare. However, and also here there are huge differences, and I took the liberty of kind of going and looking into the budgets that the public, that the state actually spends on family in the countries involved in the project. And here you see really a very big gap between the Hungarian state that has been spending about 3% of the GDP on family benefits, and the huge gap, for example, with Greece, which is at the lowest line on this graph. In these figures, there are three types of expenditures. There is child-related cash to families, but also the subsidies to childcare services and other family services. And the third component is tax benefits. Of course, also the composition of these expenditures is very important for families to decide how they organize care, whether they buy care or they carry out care themselves, or they use state-provided care services. There are also quite large differences in female employment rates, which explain the differences in deciding how to organize the balance between care and paid work. And last but not least, there are also very big differences in how gendered these arrangements are, with Belgium having at this point the smallest gap in female-male employment, about 10% gap, and with Italy and Greece having the largest gap of the 4 countries, almost 20%, and Hungary somewhere in the middle. Now, looking at the report of the project, I could not but notice that the partners were the employer involved in the project, the University of Trento, the foundation, VOCA, which is an association of employers, and Lejedal in Kortrijk, which is actually an association, I think, of municipalities, are all in the public and non-profit sphere. And perhaps I will hear more during the presentation, but I was reflecting on how feasible the kind of experiment you have set up is for companies. Especially in light of this idea that has been very profound in businesses about the necessity to outsource all kinds of tasks that are not considered essential and really the core business of organizations. This idea of organizing childcare together with employees, which is so at the center of your project, kind of goes against the idea of super specialization of company around core activities. So I'm very curious to hear from you what you have to tell about the role of employers. Now, in the literature that I've been able to consult in the last weeks, I think that these volunteer occupational welfare services are seen at the same time as an opportunity to better protect workers and to innovate this protection. And the emphasis is also on the role of trade unions, which is not so prominent in the project, but it's very prominent in the literature, that this is not only an employer kind of initiative, but often negotiated collectively at the level of the company with the trade unions. But of course, there are also quite some risks. And I think the most prominent risk mentioned in this literature is the risk that the access to these kind of services supported by the employer will be limited to certain kind of sectors and certain kind of companies, kind of stimulating further a dualization of the welfare which has been going on in the past decades all over the place. But this is a bit, I think, the biggest fear, certainly from a trade union point of view, and that you end up having enclave social policy, so limited to certain pockets of employees. There is a bigger discussion about the fact that this could be a potential incentive to demise further public provisions, although there is not much empirical evidence yet for that. Perhaps a more important or interesting consideration is also that these volunteer activities, they are taken on initiative of employer and employees. At the same time, they can end up costing quite a lot of money for the state, because the state generally provides some fiscal kind of incentives. And that could kind of create a cost that is not in the hands of the state, but rather in the hands of the private parties, so to say, which might cause some problem. It can cause administrative costs, above all because companies are not specialized in childcare, and also kind of It can create complexities between levels of care offered, creating surplus in some areas and lack of childcare in other ones. Now I have a third lens, and I'm trying to go towards, which is the last of my perspectives that I would like to offer you. And it is a more a social reproduction kind of lens, which is a more political lens, and which starts from the actually the reflection that was initially made more organically in the 70s, actually to a certain extent, to a large extent in Italy, but also in the US. About the inherent contradiction in capitalism between the necessity to integrate as many people as possible into productive activities to ensure the profit, to ensure the valorization of capital on one hand, and on the other hand, the necessity to maintain the conditions to reproduce the labor force for production today, but also potentially the production of tomorrow. So childcare in this under capitalism is understood as a way of producing labor for tomorrow, biologically through childbirth, of course, and raising children at home and in the community in the first place, but also through the welfare state, for example, through schools and health services and leisure time infrastructure, and even all the wealth and the resources that go into sustaining people after they exit the labor market. So this is a much more holistic, long-term kind of lens that makes us aware, I think, and that's why it's so useful, on how we are in all we do, even when we care for our children or for somebody else. We are never completely outside the modality of organizing the economy, which is very specific and which is the capitalist one. So social reproduction becomes, in this sense, the reproduction of labor, which who should be competent, healthy, and compliant, as an essential condition for production to continue. And this sense, everything we do in when we care is fundamentally shaped by capital. And I think this is interesting because I think this project kind of tries to come loose a little bit and to from this from the fact that care is within capitalism. But also remains within the like reflects all the contradictions of the fact that you can never be outside it. Now, this lens also really emphasizes that social reproduction has historically been carried out disproportionately by women, and in the first place by labor class women, racialized women, and migrant women. So I see this innovation of care you're trying to do as an attempt to de-mediate care. So to take care outside the sphere of the market and to take care outside the sphere of the state and more under control of individuals, even though you can never be completely outside these systems, right? And how do you innovate? You redefine the roles between the citizen, employers, these third parties, associations of civil society, and the state. But you also really push the boundaries of the division between production and reproduction, which we have inherited from the Industrial Revolution, and which is historically something quite specific to the last 150 years. It also, to a certain extent, redistributes the costs of care, and last but not least, leverages new technology to organize differently. I think I interpret this as a part of a larger movement to kind of reappropriate both the economy and the reproduction sphere through alternative practices that foster participation, and that's very differently from political struggles that have characterized the post-war period, are not are less explicitly oppositional or less focused on an explicit antagonistic political narrative, and more focused on doing bottom up and envisioning alternative to care in the doing through a politics of micro transformation, which motivates subjects more than today, I think, and I'm sure you will understand what I mean, that contemporary subjects are motivated more through this kind of micro politics, and which, however, also carry, of course, the risk of losing a shared broader horizon of where we want to evolve towards. So a broader political narrative, if you want. So just to conclude, a few questions which I would like to give you, to offer to the discussion about how should we evaluate this kind of projects. I'm sure I will learn from you what you have learned in the doing, in the trying to put these parties together to organize differently. As a critical scholar, I'm interested also on reflecting on whether these initiatives have decreased your dependence from capital and the state, have effectively decommodified, how they have redistributed costs and risks in view of equity, how you evaluate the quality of childcare that has been produced, and also the new subjectivities that you have been able de-mediated, not as future labor. What kind of social relation have been fostered and social capital? How inclusive you think this initiative has been able to be? And last but certainly not least, whether gender relations have been transformed through these practices. I would like to end here, and I hope I didn't speak for too long.
Okay, no, that was perfect. I mean, at least with the official schedule, but it was really, really interesting. Thank you very much. I think I think I will have a lot of questions and comments for the question answering, but I also encourage people to submit their own questions. Otherwise, I will keep all the time to discuss with you, which will not be fair, of course, that the chair talk with the speakers. Okay, so I will go to the next presentation, which is actually the point of view, the internal point of view of Family Share. We will have a combined talk with the experience in the Stuveri and the experience in Trento. So I think that it will start Effie Cotonnier, and so I will leave the floor. Effie is the CEO of this very, very interesting initiatives, and I'm pretty sure that we should talk about that. Effie, your floor.
Thank you, Massimo, and thank you, Patricia, for this introduction. It shows a lot about the context we're working in. And actually, I'm not a researcher or a scientific, but I'll bring you some of my own experience into the experiences we have with the experiments here in Belgium with Family Share within companies or organizations. Let me share my screen. Okay. And Okay. So my name is Eefje Kottenier, and here is a very valuable family picture to me. In the front, you can see my grandparents. And I remember how I used to play with my cousins and nieces at their house while our parents were working. And I remember my grandma looking through her kitchen window, looking at us play, my grandpa napping in the sofa, the smell of the coffee. And I learned a lot. I learned about how to cook a meal, how to fold clothes. I learned how to make glue with flour, for example. My grandparents, they became my true heroes. But what you don't see in this picture is what family share is about. Grandparents, they don't live around the corner anymore, or they work longer, and so families have to solve their own schedules more and more. So maybe you can relate to this as I tell you how my life is today. I rush from morning till evening. My kids are rushed. They are put off in school before school hours, and they stay very late after 2 hours, after school hours. Then I rush to the store. I try to make a healthy meal. My son, he wants to cook with me, and instead I put him in the sofa. At the end of the day, I sit down and I feel drowned. I'm exhausted and I feel like I'm a bad mom. I pay with guilt feeling. I have a guilt feeling towards my children for not being there. And also I pay with a huge financial invoice. And how do you think this is for single parents? For them, the clock stops. They can't find a job that matches the school hours, and they feel guilty for not contributing in society, and as well, they feel guilty towards their children for not being able to pay them a holiday camp or go on holiday. Actually, there's a brick wall between the child's life and the parent's life, and childcare institutions or schools institutions don't match the working hours. Our family system is very much outdated. So parents have known for a long time what studies are showing now, that parental stress is leading to burnout. It's leading to health issues for the children, and it's lowering the learning capacity of children. What's even worse is that in Europe, 80% of families need some form of childcare, and only 33% has access to the current childcare offer. Governments, they cannot solve this problem as it costs a lot to install more childcare institutions, and the private sector won't solve it because it's not profitable enough for the private sector. There has been some discussions during the corona because the awareness has been raised in Belgium about childcare, and that it's more important and it has a big effect on economy. And there's been a discussion pinpointing each other whose responsibility it is. Well, actually, the family share solution helps parents to share childcare needs. We do it by implementing it within existing structures, existing systems, in order to modernize the family system. So we implemented it within governments, family associations, but also if it's offered within the company floor, if companies offer this form of childcare, it can really solve the problem at the roots. Actually, the solution we have developed is cheap because parents, they share time, they pay with their time. And it is also safe. There's never a parent alone with the children. There are always two parents or a parent and a professional. And there is a tailor-made insurance that covers every participant and the venues where it's operated. It's also very flexible because this methodology can be used anytime and anywhere it's needed and in any form it's needed. And it's very qualitative. Every parent wants the best for its children, and this shows up. Every family share group forms a new family, friends so close they become family, and it's built on trust. So let me tell you how it really works. Here in Belgium, you invest 1 day of your time and you get 4 days of childcare back, operated by the trusted group of parents. These groups of parents, they are based on school networks, neighborhood networks, and of course, workplaces. And let me zoom into the workplace methodology. In the companies we have done pilots, we have 3. So as Patricia told, 2 of them are public or non-profit, but one is Athlon as well. I will show you a testimonial later on. That is like a regular commercial leasing company. And so all employees can be involved. There are parents, families, but also employees who don't have children who can volunteer within the group. And every employee invests a half a day instead of 1 full day, like in the other contexts. It's used mostly in school holidays, but also during the Corona lockdown period, we had a tryout to cover when the schools were closed. Actually, this showed as well that this methodology could offer a business continuity solution. We do more than we do in Belgium. The groups are very self-steering, self-maintaining, but within companies, we have more services that are needed, as of course the employees have to concentrate on their work. We use the app to monitor the communication, the group and the organization, and also we do a location check. We check if the spaces the families will use are safe enough to operate, otherwise we have to look for external spaces. The effect on myself is that I became a mom of the whole group's children, and so did the other parents for my children. I have access to cheap childcare where and when I need it, so I can be in a group within the organization, or I can be within a group in society. I can be in both. And so in the end, I can conclude I have way more headspace. My involvement within the childcare is rewarded by my children, and this is really important in the frame of guilt feeling, because putting your children aside is not the reason why you had children. So my guilt feeling melted like snow in the sun, and in the end, I feel like a good mom again, socially connected and together with my children. It's really easy to start up a group. We offer a 7-step startup guide. We have downloadable templates and we adapt to the HR policy. So we have a 2-hour conversation with the HR manager or the company owner. And there we go in depth to see how we can implement the methodology and adapt the templates. The Family Share mobile app is really interesting to monitor, because this is really important for HR managers and companies, that there is some kind of control, some kind of quality that is assured. And of course, the insurance is very important for companies. They want to make sure that insurance-wise, everything is covered. So we did a whole research with insurance companies to really have one tailor-made on this methodology. While it's operating, we have a personalized support for the organizations. We have a Cookie Do It Center. We call Family Share within the Belgium environment Cookie Do. And so all participants and the HR manager can call and email us anytime when they need help or extra support. We have online webinars, both for employees and employers on a weekly basis. We give live info sessions within the organization, and we have also HR impact assessments and adaptation of the methodology, so it becomes like a funded methodology within the own specific company environment. And that's how we make sure that every stakeholder in the process feels supported. So yeah, what would the world look like if we all have this new family structure where we all support each other? Well, parents and children, Patricia was speaking about work-life balance. They experience a real work-life balance, a real solution, and not another topic in the agenda like a ticket to the gym or other advantages that don't solve this problem. For employers, they speak about retention, that people stay longer within the company, or they don't have to go to a part-time job in order to take care of the children. And of course, they use it as an employer branding to attract more talent. What is important that more women could have access to jobs. On a societal level, this is what I came to tell you about the gender equality. The access to jobs could be an important impact of this, if we scale up this methodology amongst organizations and companies. So maybe it's interesting to hear what the CEO of Athlon has to tell about his experience within his organization.
De reden voor ons om met Corrido dat project aan te gaan is vooral omdat we zagen dat er een vraag was bij personeel. En dat er niet echt een oplossing was. Heel veel mensen gebruikten hun vakantiedagen om de kinderopvang te organiseren, terwijl de vakantiedagen eigenlijk moet gebruiken om te recupereren. En het concept van Corrido was eigenlijk een heel leuk concept waar dat we zowel dat gemeenschapsgevoel als het aanbieden van een oplossing in een shared economy konden implementeren.
Ergens wel plezant, ja, dat hij contacten legt met andere kinderen, van andere collega's. Dat schept wel ergens een band. En ja, je bent wel gerust. Hij is dichtbij en eigenlijk ben ik hier ook zonder zorgen aan mijn werkdag bezig. En hij amuseert zich, dat is op zich het belangrijkste, en waarvoor vakantie dient. Hè.
Ja, ik ben juist nieuw begonnen bij Athlon. Ik werk hier een maand en voor mij was dat wel een extra troef dat ze zeiden bij het sollicitatiegesprek dat die mogelijkheid er was. Ik heb ook een vrij groot gezin, 6 kindjes, waarvan dat er eigenlijk nog 3 een grote vakantieopvang nodig hebben. Dus dat was eigenlijk wel een heel tof initiatief en een goede buffer om ze nu hier te laten komen.
Ja, mijn dochter die is sowieso een enorme fan van het werkje van mama. Dus die vindt het enorm leuk om mee te kunnen naar hier en om hier dan ook effectief te komen spelen. Ons gebouw leent zich er perfect toe. Het is allemaal voor hun heel leuk om te doen. Dus ja, zeker alleen maar voordelen.
Voor mij is Corrido toch wel een geruststelling en geeft mij toch wel gemoedsrust voor de vakantie aan te vatten.
Voor de mensen is het een ongelooflijke boodschap naar creatief denken rond de uitdagingen en het samenbrengen van work-life balance. En hoe dat je niet altijd in traditionele patronen moet denken, maar hoe dat je oplossingen kunt vinden binnen bestaande omgeving door heel creatief op een andere manier naar een uitdaging te kijken. En wat Corrido daar gebracht heeft, is eigenlijk een concept vanuit de privéomgeving implementeren in een bedrijfsomgeving, omdat je uiteindelijk ook een community bent als bedrijf. Dat is een perfect antwoord.
So I like to hear about the social tissue, and in the speech of Patricia, but also here in the Uptown movie, you can see they have a better relationship. There's community building and social tissue building within the work environment, and it has a lot of benefits as well, like colleagues working better together because you know each other in another way. You can call it a team building all year long. So as I told already, within the Corona, the awareness was raised within companies, and this was really good news because it's very innovative, and they're not, we have no proof in different contexts and different working environments. You have industry working in shifts. You have, for example, the care, the hospitals. So we really need to further develop different forms of the family share methodology within different contexts. What happened during Corona is that we were able to find grants and new partnerships to continue to be able to implement the family share methodology within working environment. And in my dreams, it is really that it becomes really like something normal that you operate in with this childcare form within or in the neighborhood of the work spaces. So here's a list of people, organizations involved, but what is really interesting is that VLAIO, it's a national fund that funds mostly commercial innovations that was ready to fund further development of the family share Kokido methodology within companies. We have 3 pilots, but we will do 5 pilots more in the next 2 years. And Agilitas is a recruitment organization who covers the whole Belgium, the French and the Flemish department, who wanted to become a reseller, who really wants to talk about Kokido towards all their clients. So very soon we'll have a webinar for their clients as we are entering a second lockdown period to see what this could mean for some of their clients. And we have KU Leuven, who will do an economic impact research, HIVA, for the next 2 years, and the new pilots that we're developing. But also really important is Speelmakers. It's a partner that supports us in playing and supporting the parents and the childcare groups for the quality and help them stimulate the play with the children and give them more pedagogic support. There are a lot of future opportunities within the family share methodology, and I think the problems I mentioned are not only Belgium, they are true for the whole world. So I think in case of this pandemic, business continuity with this methodology could, if all families had this network, it could really cover lockdowns of schools. We have adapted methodology and to save childcare bubbles, like small bubbles, also to operate at home. And we could partner up for the future and share grants for further international development. And this is a call to action to you. Follow us or contact us if you feel like collaborating in the next 2-3 years in order to internationalize and further develop the family share at work solution. So I guess you're curious to see how my family looks like today. Well, it's my dream come true and the dream of a lot of other Belgian families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Efrin. It was really an interesting experience, the Kokido experience. And I would like to give the floor. We are a little bit late now, but I think we are still in time. I would like to give the floor to Chiara Leonardi and Gianluca Schiavo to present the FPK case studies, which was based on this corporate setting. even if in non-profit case. Is Gianluca, I think?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Gianluca Schiavo. I'm a researcher at FBK, Fondazione Bruno Kessler, and part of the research team, the Family Share research team, who works at the Trento City Lab. So in this presentation, I will explain our experience in collaborative childcare that was organized in our company, and also some of the insights that we had after this experience. So as it was already mentioned by Agostino and Effie, so Family Share is a collective childcare method where employees can participate and give their time or their skills and competencies. And we investigated how this model could be applied in a company, within a company, and as a way of participatory welfare. So the base for starting this kind of activity was to have a community of colleagues that could share their time. And the idea was to support this practice and the engagement also of our colleagues, and also to deal with the administrative part of our foundation, so the HR, as a way for supporting initiatives in the framework of corporate social responsibility. So there are different ways for implementing Family Share at work, and we try to investigate some of them. For example, there are different degrees in which parents can participate to the activity. In one way, they can organize the whole activity in a self-organized way, or they can get support from educational experts. So we experimented both of these type of arrangement. And then there is also different ways in which the HR department can manage this kind of collaborative initiatives. Could be in-house, where the HR department manage all the process for activating Family Share co-playing activities, or there could be support from external partners, like in the case of the Suveré that Effie mentioned. So to give some context about our City Lab and the activity that we had in FBK. So FBK is a research center, is a knowledge-based organization with almost 600 employees, and is part of a network of local organizations that support initiatives towards work-life balance, and also towards supporting families and their employees. This is called Family Audit. I would say that when we started the project in 2018, in FBK, there was already some kind of experience in providing activities for childcare, especially in the summer, for the summer holidays, summer camps, where in some way some researchers or the foundation participated in the ideation and in conducting the activity during summer. And with Family Share, we could experiment more ways for supporting further this kind of involvement. Just to mention some of the initiatives that we activated. So we started with these summer weeks. We call them summer kits, and also a camp before starting the school, where we co-design also with other organizations. So it was not just FBK, but for example, for the preschool camp, we included also the University of Trento, and we co-designed together these initiatives where the children of both of parents of both organizations could participate, and where resources were shared between the different organizations. So there were FBK who allowed to use the spaces, the place. Then there is the university who provided professional educators to support these kind of activities. And then we tested for the first time Family Share as a driver for having researchers of FBK to participate in scientific labs in this kind of summer camps. Then after, we also experimented some self-managed organization, self-managed activities. We call them Friday mini labs. In that way, parents and researchers, but also administrative staff could use the spaces in FBK to manage some kind of after-school activities in small groups. Then this year, when the coronavirus crisis came, we had to, well, of course, we planned many activities for this year, but then we had to reschedule them and to change also some of them in as an online meetups, or what we call them rende online. And so the community that was activated the year before, so the community of parents, was reactivated, and they provided their time to organize these online meetings when there was the lockdown in Italy. And so they could provide some form of childcare in the form of video scientific labs, remote scientific labs, and other kind of activities. And but then in September, we could also have a let's say proper summer camp. That summer camp was organized with another organization within the Family Audit District, that is a social cooperative. So we partnered with them to organize a summer camp where there was a professional, a single professional from this social cooperative, and a parent, that is an employee in FBK, who would be present for the entire, so different parents will shift their time and then contribute to the different activities. And these activities were conducted not in the premises of FBK, since it was not possible, but in a garden, in a plant nursery that was managed by the social cooperative. So we had a place where children could play and do their summer camp, and in the same place, we also set up a smart working area where the parents could work from there. So they could work there, and if there was their turn, they could also participate to the activity or supporting the educators, or providing new activities in a lab, or in organizing the childcare activities. All of our activities were also supported by the digital platform. So we have this application that was developed within the project, and that's supporting mainly the organization and the organization of shifts between participants, and also sharing information. So in the app, you can create groups and manage the members of each group, and create different activities, and keep track of the children and parents who would provide the support during the different activities. And you can also share information about the children that are attending the activities, for example, so if they have any special needs. So the volunteers who's taking care of that children can also know some of this information. So just briefly discussing the positive aspect that we saw from these activities. On one side, we saw some positive outcomes, both from the organization and from the employees. So for the organization, it was an opportunity to understand better the needs of staff. And for the employees, it was a way for supporting bottom-up initiatives. So they have more a way for participating in first person to the organization and the realization of these activities. On the other side, we also saw that the co-participation of parents and colleagues in this kind of activity made their relationship stronger. And this is also an outcome that could be reflected in the organizational well-being of our company. And then we also found a kind of shift from work-life balance and to work-life blending. We'll discuss about this later, but it was also from the child point of view, an opportunity to experience the workplace where their parents are working, And on the other side, for the parents, it was a way for try alternative skills that maybe they don't use during their work, but for organizing these childcare activities, it was a way also for try other to try other skills and skills during the childcare. And as last point, we also found that having this kind of cooperation between different organizations. So we had an organization who provided some the professional educators, and others who provided spaces or other type of resources. It was a way for supporting the sharing, not just between individuals, but also between organizations. And we framed this in as a sort of community-based welfare. So it was not just the results of the welfare of one single organization, but of a network of different organizations. We also found some challenges in the process. Of course, we had to deal with social dynamics that occurs in groups of colleagues. And it was a very prominent topic at the beginning of when we started to organize this kind of activity, how we could sustain the trust and the participation of our colleagues in this kind of activities. Another issue was the legal and the insurance aspects. So we had discussions and agreements with the insurance companies to find a way for providing a safe way of conducting this kind of activities, both from the space and also for using the space and for as an insurance point of view. Then, of course, planning this kind of activity at the beginning, in the first year, it was not easy. And so it also included a part of effort in coordinating the activities. And of course, we had the app, and that was a support, but still it was something that has to be planned in advance. So how organize the timing and the coordination between different volunteers in this kind of co-playing activities. And then the last point is that we had to recognize the diversity of needs and also expectation that our colleagues had with respect to this kind of collaborative action or initiative. So of course we had to even when also smart working was was implemented in our company, and so working remotely, it was important to consider the territorial distribution of our employees. So it was not anymore possible or feasible to organize the activities, for example, in the headquarters of our foundation. And then we also had to deal with different expectations with respect to this kind of activities, so that they're not classical childcare, traditional childcare activities, but they are co-participated and co-played. So of course there were different expectations from different colleagues. Okay, so from a very let's say considering a more theoretical framework, we could say that on one way, traditionally, so there is the concept of work-life balance, and was also presented by Professor Zanoni. And we would propose that this kind of activities, collaborative childcare activities as family share, shift the model from the concept of work-life balance, where work and private and family life are considered separated and say well separated between them, to a more a different perspective, that is work-life integration, where there are some points of contacts between work life and private life. And this is something that really it's very common now, that smart working and working from home and the coronavirus crisis made really apparent, both in the positive and in the negative ways. In this sense, we think that family share was some kind of initiatives that were part of this blurring between the work and the private life. So it was something that was in between, and emphasized the co-participation of employees and parents to the childcare and also the private life of each other. So it's something that it's important to be aware of when organizing these kind of initiatives in a company, of course. Just just few words about the FBK and some aspects that were peculiar also of our context is that as a research center and from the organizational point of view, FBK has a special attention to corporate welfare. So it was a company where corporate welfare was already, many initiatives were already put in place. And there were strong connection with local organizations and local stakeholders. And this was another strong point of help in supporting us in having this kind of activities. I would now play two contributions, two testimonials from the team, the HR team at FBK, Luisa Rigoni from Human Resource Development, and Alessandro Dalla Torre, the head of Human Resources, who will explain us their perspectives on welfare and what family share bring to the welfare in FBK.
La Fondazione, fin dalla sua costituzione, è stata molto attenta alla conciliazione vita e lavoro e attivando molte politiche interne rivolte al personale. Un personale che è composto da oltre 500 tra ricercatrici, ricercatori, personale di staff e dottorandi. Da oltre 10 anni FBK è certificata Family Audit, ha sperimentato molti progetti di welfare aziendale. Grazie all'esperienza e all'ampliamento della rete territoriale, queste iniziative si sono trasformate in azione di welfare interaziendale, portando FBK ad essere un soggetto attivo nel distretto Family Audit di Trento, quindi nella città, nella nostra area. Un distretto che vede questa innovativa partnership tra pubblico e privato e anche l'innovativa, chiaramente, coprogettazione tra realtà con competenze diverse. Questa è sicuramente una ricchezza. Quindi il distretto è nato con l'obiettivo di generare condivisione sul tema della famiglia e dei servizi per i dipendenti. Come è partito questo percorso? Dal piano aziendale di welfare e dai saperi propri di FBK, cito ad esempio le Summer Kid Initiatives, che sono laboratori estivi per i figli dei dipendenti. In questi laboratori i ricercatori affrontano con modalità interattiva temi come l'information technology, material and microsystem e social science, avvicinando al mondo della ricerca i più piccoli. Family Share ha proposto una soluzione collaborativa dal basso verso l'alto per migliorare il work-life balance, aiutando quindi i genitori di una medesima comunità ad auto-organizzarsi per condividere la cura dei bambini. Anche la tecnologia ha fatto la sua parte, perché tramite l'app sviluppata ad hoc ha supportato quest'app la gestione interattiva dei laboratori e delle attività. Così, dopo un'attenta analisi dei bisogni fatta in comune, nel 2019 sono stati all'inizio attivati alcune iniziative come i Friday Mini Lab, queste attività pomeridiane autogestite dai genitori, ma ospitati negli spazi FBK, quindi qui c'è già una contaminazione, quindi l'organizzazione, i genitori, i bambini, gli spazi comuni. Poi siamo passati dalle iniziative Summer Kids Initiative ai preschool camp che sono stati organizzati insieme ad altre organizzazioni con l'approccio Family Share, quindi cambiando proprio il modello organizzativo. Nel 2020 quindi arriviamo al lockdown e qui è stato attivato una nuova modalità, quella delle merende online, per supportare i genitori e i colleghi in alcuni momenti della giornata. Quindi anche questa vicinanza in un momento complicato per i dipendenti che avevano dei bambini piccoli. Infine l'iniziativa, l'ultima iniziativa e forse quella più innovativa, settembre 2020, che si chiama Tutto Verde Camp, un bellissimo garden dove i bambini hanno visto, sono stati coinvolti in questo spazio bello, no? Perché poi il garden è uno spazio verde dove genitori e educatori hanno collaborato nell'attività giornaliera, attivando uno spazio attrezzato anche di smart working. Quindi questo approccio innovativo, chiaramente in un'organizzazione che spinge per il lavoro ibrido, questa sperimentazione tra work-life balance, dove c'è la gestione dei bambini e anche la possibilità di lavorare in smart working, a nostro avviso è stata un passaggio fondamentale nell'evoluzione del modello di welfare.
L'intervento della collega Luisa Rigoni esemplifica chiaramente le potenzialità di un welfare che risulta nel contempo in azione e partecipato. Un welfare cioè che nasce da bisogni concreti e a cui lavoratrici, lavoratori e datori di lavoro insieme danno risposte costruite su misura. In FBK chiamiamo questa forma di welfare di prossimità. Il welfare di prossimità, nei fatti, si aggiunge all'insieme di servizi e di interventi che il sistema pubblico e privato offrono per via legislativa o contrattuale. Si può dire che il welfare di prossimità, per il suo carattere sussidiario e di straordinarietà, si muove nello spazio non presidiato da welfare tradizionale. Uno spazio cioè esposto a continui cambiamenti di contesto e ad una pluralità infinita di esigenze particolari. Da questo punto di vista il welfare di prossimità deve saper mettere in gioco capacità di analisi, rapidità nelle reazioni, flessibilità delle soluzioni e non da ultimo un forte spirito di mutualità tra tutti i soggetti coinvolti e interessati. Tutti questi elementi sono costitutivi di quelle comunità di pratica che con il loro impegno costruiscono giorno per giorno la nuova frontiera della responsabilità sociale in ambiti anche molto diversi tra loro. Penso alle realtà di quartiere, all'associazionismo sociale e territoriale, alle istituzioni no profit, esattamente come la Fondazione Bruno Kessler. Su questa frontiera la Fondazione è continuamente impegnata a innovare la propria cultura organizzativa secondo quel modello di Living Lab che le è proprio, le è costitutivo, in quanto centro di ricerca e di innovazione a forte impatto sociale.
Okay, just conclude my talk, share with you, sharing with you some of the resources that were developed within the project. So we mentioned the application, the digital platform that is available to download and will be also available after the end of the project. And this tool can be personalized, so it's an open source and can be the source code can be downloaded and modified. Then we will also share the family share toolkits. So we have a number of toolkits for organizations and companies where we describe a little bit our experience and our suggestion to activate family share activities in organizations. Then there would be a toolkit for municipalities and public institutions, for no-profit organizations, and also a toolkit for developers and ICT experts to personalize the digital platform. And you can find all the resources in the project website. Okay, with this I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gianluca. And I think that we are running a little bit late, but I actually would like to prompt a little bit of discussion. Maybe we can shorten a few minutes, just not to waste the entire break, but I think it is important. I can't see any question on the tools, so please, I will invite and encourage the attendees to ask questions. In the meantime, I would like to make a question or a comment to talk of Patrizia Zanoni, which I thank again for her very interesting and comprehensive presentation. One thing that distinguished the experience in FBK was that we tried to do these aspects of childcare in the company, but with a stronger attempt to actually involve the other employers, so this co-design and co-production, and also by trying to involve in the HR area, so the HR the HR people, the group. For us, this was a first step toward this idea, and we also tried a little bit more to co-produce some organizational aspects of the work. Do you think that this, in some sense, can be seen as can be framed in one of the three theoretical lenses that you presented, Patrizia? This new way of involving the governance of the companies, in which just childcare is just an example, but this idea is to try to involve employees in the organizational aspects of the companies.
I don't know if I understand your question. Can you hear me?
It's not really. Yeah, sure. It's not really a question. I understand. It's more a comment than a question.
I think at least in the Belgian context, which I paradoxically, even though I come from Bolzano, so this, but in the what I know best is the Belgian context. And when you say, you know, a way to involve the HR personnel in the organization, I ask myself in the extent to which you can do this in this context, at least without involving the trade unions. I think, you know, reading the project, I think depending on what kind of setting you are in, you might have to deal with different kind of actors. And certainly everything that is coming from employers in big companies, because at least in big companies where you have an established trade union representatives, I think this is that's an actor that should be part of the dialogue, which is not necessarily always helpful, because in many times trade unions have a bit of resistance because they don't know, you kind of redefine the roles and then you don't know where you're gonna end, right? And you can risk, there can also be trade-offs. So the resources that you put into the organizing this kind of stuff can then be taken out of others, or there can be deals. This said, I think there are some companies that have a culture of innovation, and where indeed they look with, you know, quite kind of open eyes into any solution that can help them go on in their activities, but also motivate and integrate their personnel. I mean, there are these kind of companies. Now, I don't know exactly in how much they were directly involved in organizing, or whether they kind of gave the framework and rather pulled in third parties more specialized, because that's also a trade-off, right? For administrations, they are at this point, they are outsourcing the selection of their personnel. They are outsourcing the, you know, all the administration. A lot of things are devolved to specialized actors. And so this is a question for me, how far are they ready to take on this kind of activities? But perhaps it's, yeah, this is what you should.
I think it should be probably a long talk. In our case, the trade unions actually completely ignored us at the beginning, also probably because of the research nature of the project. We will plan to actually involve them also in a larger association of industrial companies in Italy, Confindustria, but actually the COVID emergency completely disrupts this part of the work plan of the project. But I agree that trade unions will be a very important actor in this context. Okay, there's a discussion ongoing on the chat, which actually maybe Efi, there was a question for Efi about how to measure the economic impact. And I think how they actually measure the economic impact. I see that there are some chat, but maybe Efi, can you summarize for the rest of us?
Yes, well, we didn't measure the economic impact within the Family Share project, but now we are starting to measure in the new pilots together with Hiva from KU the economic impact in terms of access to jobs for single parents or people without childcare support, but also in terms of the prestations at work, in terms of absenteeism, and so on. So now we are going to do a 0-point measurement, let's say, and follow the new pilots that are starting up now for the next 2 years in terms of having scientific proof of the economic impacts. So.
Okay, thank you, Effie. I was looking if there are some other questions. I can see any. Maybe another question for our guest, Patrizia Zanoni. I think, do you think that the COVID emergency and all these very strong emphasis on remote working will actually change a little bit this approach, not only for the, because I mean, after all, remote working is a sort of answer to the family life balance. Not a good one, probably, but it could change a little bit the equation, isn't it?
I do think that this situation has stimulated, has enhanced the visibility of the problem. And what it has done, it has forced us collectively, those of us that, who can work from home, to do so. So it has de-individualized the choice, right? And these moments of collective reorganization, of course, are much more significant than any individual choice, because then the conflicts or the advantages of other ways of working become more visible in a more distributed way. At the same time, of course, there is a lot of debate about the fact that what we have come to define as the essential jobs, the jobs on which our care fundamental, like our food, our transport, information, all those jobs, and health, of course, all those jobs are precisely the jobs that cannot be done in remote mode. And I do hope politically that this leaves some traces. There is nothing to be taken for granted, I think, but this kind of redefines the norms, possibly, what is normal. The fact we know that despite the availability of technology, because if you look at it, we could kind of switch relatively easily. Only 10 years ago, all this wouldn't have been possible.
Only 1 year ago, probably.
yeah. I mean, so the possibility have been there. The costs are relatively limited, and still we haven't been doing it. The move into teleworking, for example, is often is often held back because, for example, there is fear that we go back to structure of wages per piece instead of based on time, working time. which is again a risk in the minds of trade unions, for example. But at the same time, there is a whole population waiting to have solutions to better combine work and life. So I do think this discussion will increase. There are other discussions like about reduction of working time, for example, and that kind of. But those are more, I think, further from our experience, more political and more difficult to mobilize a whole group of people on this issue. I think there will be more traction because people can imagine what it could be, and some people will also not want to go back to a non-telework regime after this experience, and will put pressure on their representatives and on companies to have more flexibility.
Thank you. Maria, do you want to say something?
I just, Massimo, hi, thank you. I just pasted more of a comment into the chat. I think the thread of the discussion is really interesting, and I was actually triggered to think, in a way, this reference to class, which was made at the beginning, was shedding a new light on our experiment and on our piloting in Family Share, and I started to think to what extent work-life blending opportunities might become a sort of privilege, in a way, for high-skilled workers mostly.
Well, I do think that if you link a few things that you've learned about, it's definitely not the poor companies, for example, that will start with these experiments. Let's assume this for I mean, not necessarily the richest either, but you need to have the resources to do this, to envision this. Also, I think you have seen that one of the key aspects is the trust between people. And we know that trust with people you don't know well, of course, it's easier to imagine and to give to people that look like you, that have a similar socio-demographic profile. So I do think that there are some, attention points, I think, in designing and developing. And when you have something that is unlikely to emerge spontaneously, well, one should think, what kind of boundary conditions shall we create to let the trust emerge when we believe it will not emerge spontaneously? Likely, it's unlikely that it will do it. For example, one thing is to to look at the employer, and another opportunity, of course, which is going on a lot in cities today, is to look at neighborhoods. I'm involved in projects on European disadvantaged neighborhoods, or even more advantaged neighborhood that could be. How could you, create this kind of services more embedded in the territory locally? In Belgium, for example, you have freedom to choose the school to which your children go. And this creates, in my neighborhood, for example, all my neighbors is a very close community, but all the children go to another school because of the structure of free school choice, which kind of fragments the social fabric, right? I don't know if we should be obliged to go all to the same school. I'm not saying that, but I think it's interesting to rethink how to reconnect in new ways, and you are trying to do that. And one way is through the employer, an interesting way, but you could have other ones as well.
Thank you, Patrizia. Yes, I perfectly agree. And yes, I think it's a very interesting time, and I think that it would probably take much longer than a life of a project, of a European project, to see how these things can have an impact in the society. But as Efe is writing on the chat, I think that having pilots on different versions and different companies, we are probably helping better understanding this approach. I will probably now, Agostino, call for the break. We are 10 minutes late, so we can probably we should come back at 45. We can come back at 55, 5 minutes to 4. Agostino, do you agree on that? Okay, so I think we can do the break and we will meet in 15 minutes or 5 minutes to 4. We will be a little bit late, but not so much. 5 minutes to 4, we will resume the session.
Yeah, don't disconnect. Stay connected. Just mute and switch your videos off.
Hello, I think it's time to start. Okay, Maria Agostino, are you there?
I'm really leaving now, but I thank you and have a good continuation.
Okay, thank you, Maria. And we see the third. We see you in the third appointment of this webinar. And I would like to start this second part of the meeting of today. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Vasia Amadesi from VLabs. She's going to present us the family share sustainability model that has been elaborated in the final part of the project. And Vasia, the floor is yours. You should be able to share.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Yes, just give me a minute so I can properly share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, sure. We can see the presentation, the slides. Maybe you can try to start the presentation.
Is it better now?
Okay, this is the presentation.
Okay, so my name is Vasia Amadesi and I'm working as a project manager for VLabs. Actually, today I'm substituting one of my colleagues, Apostolos, who had a last-minute appointment. So I will speak about the sustainability model of family share, and I will share some preliminary recommendations for organizational welfare policies. Actually, I'm quite sad because I heard all these very interesting presentations and now we are on the more formal part of the presentations. I will start by saying that family share, as you have already heard, is part of the Collective Awareness Platforms for Sustainability and Social Innovations program, which was initiated in 2012 in the context of the 7th Framework Program of Research. Its purpose has been to identify new kinds of research projects and, to a certain extent, a new research area focusing on social innovation in the digital agenda. So I will start by saying that this has been a wonderful trip of 3 years that had led us in a remarkable number of results that have the potential to be further exploited and maximize the project impact in several cases. So the family share platform and the app, when it comes to exploitable results, has been developed under a Creative Commons license. So the platform is among the exploitable results. Other results include the process-oriented knowledge of the project, the behavior change strategy and the lessons learned, and of course a newly built community which was built in existing communities, and of course the policy recommendations which were formulated in a bottom-up approach. Starting from the platform itself, its features and its use have been already mentioned and already presented so far. But when it comes to the process-oriented knowledge, what it is really important to share while closing this important project is the lessons learned and the best practices on user recruitment and engagement, and of course on awareness raising and training for supporting communities. This is a knowledge that can be used as consulting services, but also as an open knowledge for everyone that is interested in adopting such a solution or taking it even further. This is not a static result. This is something that will be continue to be researched and will be used by the different communities that will be involved. When it comes to the behavioral change strategy and the lessons learned, here we have tried different approaches, and this is also a knowledge that can be used as a consulting service and as a basis for other tactics and approaches on childcare services. For the newly built community, these new contacts, connections, and communities represent a great value and stepping stone for the wider use and impact of the platform and the project. And these connections and communities will continue existing and growing both in the offline and online daily activities of FamilyShare. In the offline, hopefully not now, but hopefully a little bit later, let's say. The project has been built on existing communities, but new have been built around its services. And when it comes to the policy recommendations, they will be thoroughly approached and be presented during the third day of our webinar, which is on the 27th of October. These have been formulated with a bottom-up approach and will elaborate on policy-related impacts on digital social innovation, on work-life balance, and childcare, local childcare services and local cohesion, as well as gender equality. These are all the results of the project. Moving on, the exploitation and sustainability of FamilyShare is a key commitment for the project consortium, and not only that. The exploitation activities in FamilyShare have the aim to ensure the sustainability of the activities through the continuation of the City Labs operation using the FamilyShare app after the end of the project with a specific sustainability plan, which is based on dedicated business concepts developed by the City Labs themselves. But of course, the adaptation to further communities that are interested in this solution and that are tight contacts with the existing 6 City Labs or further. By sustaining the FamilyShare platform and the app, the maintenance and operation and update will be through a viable business model, including also the list of consulting services, localization, training, additional features, and so on. And also, we will support the expansion and replication of FamilyShare platform and services in various, not only geographical contexts around around Europe, as well as in different application areas. It can be an app that can be adapted to different settings and not only the childcare services. So, speaking about important milestones, one important milestone of the sustainability and exploitation of the FamilyShare result was the conduction of a SWOT analysis that managed to define the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the FamilyShare solution. I don't want to go into great detail, but I would like to highlight a few points of each one of the categories. So starting from the strengths, this is an online solution that it is very easily adaptable to offline existing communities. And this was especially tested at the times of COVID in our 6 pilot location. So this is a solution that can be easily adaptable to different settings, and it can go very easily from offline to online. A weakness we also identified when it comes to that and coped with during the pilots is related to trust issues. So, for example, parents have to be persuaded to use the app, and trust issues can also expand to other target groups that are not fully convinced on how to use and how to adapt the FamilyShare solution beyond the childcare services. When it comes to opportunities, the fact that during COVID, we have understood more than ever that we need work-life balance measures in private and public institutions, and that childcare initiatives can use online supports, can take FamilyShare app as an additional module, while companies can promote work-life balance activities through their personnel. So, While we're speaking about sustainability and exploitation, we need to understand which are the family share adopters. So according to the initial exploitation plan, the following sectors are targeted. First is the public sector. Family share can be offered as a complementary solution for work-life balance solutions and services offered by the public sector. It can also be adopted by non-profit sector. There are several civil society organizations focused on work-life balance and childcare activities that could adopt the platform to make their activities more effective and increase the impact. Offline self-sustained community activities to facilitate work-life balance are expected to be multiplied at the project locations and above. And of course, it is also the private sector where various private sector companies are interested in offering specific support services for employees trying to achieve a balance between work and personal life in the framework of their social responsibility activities. In this respect, family share can be offered as an innovative solution to enhance these activities. Moving on, when it comes to factors that influence the involvement of organizations, we can start with welfare initiatives on work-life balance and childcare. The fact that an organization has already put in place initiatives to improve work-life balance represent a positive factor that might impact on family share adoption. More important is the act that an organization has already started to reflect on childcare initiatives and on employees' needs. And the presence of adequate spaces within an organization where to organize childcare activities is, of course, an important factor. On employee engagement and organizational culture, Seeing Family Share promotes an approach to childcare where parents and employee play an active role. It is important that also the organization is interested in promoting an active role of its employees in the co-creation of childcare initiatives. An organizational culture that promotes an active role of employees and their engagement is crucial. For employees engagement and informal network, these were developing informal network of employees may have several benefits for an organization. Indeed, the organizations that participated to several focus groups consider that the value should be recognized, since this might be a starting point for collaborating and participating to formally endorse work-life balance initiatives. Moving on the enabling factors, family share as a social innovation model can be used as a mixed models where shared volunteer childcare from parents is combined actually with paid childcare offered by NGOs and social enterprises. And this can be an enable factor. While application in highly gender unbalanced contexts can incentivize the participation of men or sustain the participation of women. Especially related to work-life balance, the impact of the project can actually present some specific best practices, and this is really a distilled project experience that has brought the attention of policymakers, stakeholders at local, national, and European level. So for each dimension, participants of our focus groups, because as I mentioned earlier, in order to distill this experience, we got in contact also with local stakeholders in the pilot location. So for each dimension, we identify that already existing good practices in which to integrate the family share model are to further develop. Possible integrations into existing local and regional policies and services and recommendations. And we understand that there are obstacles of the family share model and opportunities for further development and other enabling factors. The outcome can be summarized as follows. In terms of obstacles, the need of funds for educational initiatives was highlighted. In addition to work-life balance lays on the little availability of parents in terms of time and the need of a minimum level of parenting education and some professional support before starting the activities. And when it comes to opportunities, to further develop the family share model in workplaces, it would definitely need HR management innovations. It means that an increased flexibility in working hours for employees in particular. Smart working could help in fostering time sharing, even though private houses shall not be considered suitable places for replicating the practice. From the company side, promotion of welfare blending solutions such as family share and experimenting smart working from suitable places which can host at the same time working parents, while they also dedicate part of their time to childcare, formally acknowledging the possibility for parents to dedicate time to childcare within the regular working hours to participate to family share-like initiatives. And other opportunities include existing public policies that are targeting to public institutions and companies promoting innovation in organizational welfare and HR funds dedicated to innovate would need to be revised and adapted to facilitate further spread of family share-like models. So we might need calls for projects on innovative work-life balance practices that should facilitate collaboration between companies or institutions as main beneficiaries and SMEs, or existing family audit policies could incorporate family share as good practice and adapt it to better enhance their take-up at the organizational level. Municipalities could even sponsor and adopt the model internally to involve and target their own employees and their work-life balance needs. As far as good practices are concerned, babysitting vouchers and company nurseries were identified as practices in which the model could be integrated. So I won't tire you anymore. I see that I'm already speaking 15 minutes. We will be able to present more about the policy recommendations part on the other aspects as well during the third webinar. So thank you very much for the attention, and I will give the floor back to Massimo.
Thank you very much, Basia. Thank you for being time, but also for the very interesting presentation. I think that the sustainability model is one of the most important aspects of the project in this moment that we are approaching the closure. I would now want to introduce our next invited speaker, so a speaker that is not part of the project, but on which we would like to compare our results and to discuss about the family share ideas. So I'm very happy to introduce Barbara De Boni, who is the head of human resources in Trentino Innovazione, which is a very large public investment company in Trento. And she's also here to represent the Italian Association of Human Resources Managers, with which we were trying to establish a sort of collaboration for idea sharing about family share, but unfortunately then the corona emergency actually blocked all this part, but I'm very happy that Barbara is here and she can talk about this.
Thank you very much, Massimo, and thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure to me to be here and to have the opportunity to introduce myself, to bring our experience, Trentino Sviluppo, our experience, okay, no problem. And of course, with the support of ADP, the International Association of HR Manager, which I here represent. So let me share my screen. Okay. Let me bring this aside. Okay, so Trentino Sviluppo. I just want to introduce, first of all, Trentino Sviluppo in order to let you understand what we are and what kind of company we are. I expressly chosen this picture in order to point out that our company works on the territory in Trentino and for the territory with all enterprises that are in the surroundings. So this is the starting point where I want to go on. Then what is Trentino Sviluppo and what Trentino Sviluppo does. Sorry, okay. So Trentino Sviluppo, as Massimo said, is a company controlled by the autonomous province of Trento. Is a important point on the territory for business location, for firms and investment attraction, for strategic cluster development, innovation and internationalization, touristic infrastructure, and real estate and financial services to support the industrial production. So, okay, so this is our main purpose, our main goal, and what we do. We have we are organized in a rich structure, as you can see in this organization chart, with different areas that shows how we take care of different projects and topics. So we are really covering many types of activities in our field, in the territory. And we are, sorry, and we are in almost 200 between employees and trainee, 50% men and 50% women, almost perfectly divided, and with an average age of 43. So what now I want to announce, to underline, is that in 2017, Trentino Sviluppo decided to start with the family audit project to get this certification, family audit certification, as FBK did, because the value of welfare in organization is well known, of course. All the studies shows this trend, and but especially in this age of new economy, is a tool that the company must have. So we are deeply convinced about this, and so this is the way that we decided to follow. So in these 4 years, many are the activities that we have introduced with high level of satisfaction of course, in our employees. Probably somebody knows how family audit is structured, but there are 6 areas of project, and every company, each company must point out some activities in each one of these areas. So company welfare, people caring, society culture, diversity, equality, inclusion management, workers organization, territory welfare, new technologies, and communication. These are all the area. But even though in the beginning the common idea in our between our employees is that welfare can be useful only for women, especially for women with small children, soon many of them understood that welfare can include many activities, not only kindergarten or some activities for children, but activities like elastic timetable, buying groups, sharing new technologies, time bank, and many other useful activities for all the people, not only for mother. Actually, some of these tools have become precious during this period of this pandemic period. For example, new technology, the introduction of new technology allowed everybody in Trentino Sviluppo to do smart working immediately. Exactly the first day of lockdown, almost 98% of our employees could have the chance to start with smart working. Or another tool, very important, was time bank. With the time bank that we had introduced last year and never used, we decided to use it for pandemic period, and some colleagues that cannot do smart working because, for example, they are front office, they work in front office, they could stay at home using not only their own holidays, but also using some days of holidays given from other colleagues. So these activities, this tool, this instrument become very, very important. So the next step, the next challenge that we are facing is the creation of a district. A district, a family audit district, is a group of company that shares not only family audit certification, that is mandatory, of course, but that they share also a new view of welfare. A welfare like an engine for the development of the territory in many ways, economically and socially. So, concluding, if the question is, can family share become a tool for organization welfare? My answer is yes, of course, absolutely, it must. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are a little bit late, but I think that we have some time for a few minutes more for questions or comments, especially on these later aspects of sustainability in the sense of replicability of the family shared experience. So if there are some questions for Basia, for Barbara, I think it would be interesting. In the meantime, I will have a question for Barbara, maybe again more probably a comment than a question, but I would like to ask you whether how do you think that this approach, which is the core of the family share approach, which is involving employees in actually the co-production, not only the co-design like the family audit encourages, but also the co-production of the activities. Do you think that this is a feasible approach for Trentino Sviluppo, but also your understanding of the wider area of human resources also in other companies?
Yes. So if I understand well, you are asking me if this approach bottom-up could be applied widely in a company, correct?
Yes.
Yes. If I think at the prime time when we decided to introduce family audit, like project, we had the same approach because you probably know also family audit started with a group, a focus group, a team group that propose, that work, that study, that debate which must be the tool, the questions to give to the company. So it's really an approach bottom-up that is always in social research is always the best approach. Of course, as I think that is clearly underlined in the research that you have done, because I've read in your research and I like it very much. And it is not easy, because there are plenty aspects to keep in mind, to consider. First of all, that in the company there are different kind of person, there are different sensibility, as Patrizia also says. Probably in some company you also have to include the trade in the discussion, because maybe they are not so friendly, and so it can be done. It can be done. It requests a work underline. So HR, but not only HR, also all the manager, all the middle management, I think, should be involved in this project.
Thank you. There's a couple of more questions from you in the chat. There is this appreciation about the solidarity in vacations days that you involve, and there is a question about if you could, if you can actually explain a little bit more how you work the time banking, which I think is probably the same thing of the vacation day during the lockdown, and how this can help. And then again on this aspect of the time banking, there is this issue by Patrizia, actually, if there are any problems in implementing it from a social security point of view, as these are individual rights, the vacation. So it's all about this solidarity in vacation, which is, I think, is a very interesting approach.
So what I tell you this, that is, I don't want to take too much time, but with ADP that you mentioned at the beginning, we have a chat. During the lockdown, the Triveneto, three regions create a chat, and we are almost 400 HR manager chatting in the same WhatsApp, in order to share problem and doubts regarding this situation. So when I wrote on that chat that we have implemented and decided to use time bank for these events, I received many calls, because many are the other HR manager interested in doing the same action. So the question is how we did, if I remember well. Sorry.
Yeah, how you actually use it for during the pandemic, the lockdown, and also this aspect of the social security point of view. So because these are individual rights, so how people can renounce to the rights. This is, I think that this is the question.
So what happened is that we send everybody, to all the employees, a mail telling them that who wants can have the opportunity to give freely some hours of their holiday in a bank. They don't know who are the beneficiator and what will happen to that hour. They just declare that they want to give to the bank some hours. Okay, so we collect all the hour, and then we transform this time in money, of course, because 1 hour of one employee has a different value of 1 hour of a manager, of course. So we did this transformation, and what I can tell you is that we collect around 10,000 euro of hours. Not 10,000 hours, but 10,000 euro of hours, okay? Then when we had a situation of some colleague that had the problem, and the front office was really a problem, because even now we are trying to do smart working as much as we can, but front office is really difficult to move in smart working. So for these people, we decided with the manager how many hours of the bank we can give them, and then we arrange with our economical finance support. I hope I gave all the answer.
Yeah, I think that probably Patrizia and Marcia that actually raised this question could probably also intervene in the discussion. I mean, but okay. I think that is, for me, it was very clear, and I think it was a very good idea.
Yes, it was very clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Also for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further comments of discussion, I would like to thank all the speakers of today, starting from the last one, Barbara and Vasia, and also the speakers of earlier, starting for Patrizia Zanoni, our external guest, Chiara, Gianluca, Effie, and I think I did not forget anybody. And I will think we can close the webinar for now, and we will meet again next week for the third part of this webinar. I don't know, Agostino, do you want to close in some way? Otherwise, I think I can say goodbye for the coordinators too.